Hello and welcome to Full Advisor Coaching Podcast with your host, Kristin Harad. Kristin, good to be with you again. How are you?
Great, Bill. It's been a little bit. I'm excited to be back at the microphone with you.
I'm excited to be back with you as well. I missed you. I don't, you had a lot of things going on, so
I
you
know,
know.
I know. And we had well, I just want to say today I'm super excited about our guest, and I'm going to get to him in a second. But I'm pretty excited about the enthusiasm I'm getting from listeners around the LinkedIn double series, the series we did, those
Yes.
episodes 14 and 15.
Yes.
I'm getting some great feedback on that. It was, I think, a great idea when we realized we were talking too long and we needed to cut it short and do 2 episodes. So that's really
Exactly.
been that was really exciting to hear. I've been getting great feedback on that. And I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn,
Yes.
and our guest today is someone who I first saw on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure that's the first place I came across him. And of course, he's coming up everywhere, because once you hear about someone and they're as interesting and colorful and as creative as he is, you can't help but tune in. And LinkedIn noticed him because they named him a top communication voice. So
Wow.
you probably seen him there too. He's the author of The Good Money Revolution, a book that was a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestselling book. And you may have heard him on Fox News, CNBC, PBS, and Merit Street Media.
Nice.
I
Very
know.
nice.
Are you like on the edge of your seat here?
I am. I am. I
Okay.
can see him. Unfortunately, I can see him.
I know.
Which our
So
listeners
I'm going to
can't.
fast
So.
forward. I'm welcoming today Derrick Kinney, and I don't want to leave out that he is one of us in the advisor community, as in he had a multi-million-dollar advisory business that he recently sold. He was Forbes' best in state wealth advisor and the number one fee-based advisor among 10,000 advisors at his broker dealer. That's number one out of 10,000. Very cool. But now he teaches advisors how to make more money and how to do more good with it. Derrick, it's great to have you here.
Kristin, with an intro like that, I need to come back on every week. I mean, my gosh, you really pumped me up there. It's really great to be with you. I'm super excited about this.
I know. And what's really fun is that you and I have, I think, commented, gone back and forth on things online, but we've never had a face-to-face. And so it's exciting to really get to hear a little bit more about your story and how you're helping advisors and share some of your wisdom. One of the things I wanted to find out, obviously, I kind of gave the highlights in that intro, but could you take just a few minutes and give listeners the sort of Spark Notes version of your story?
Sure. Yeah. So I began as a financial advisor. I was 26 years old and I had a problem. The problem was I looked like I was 13. As a lot of people do at that age. And I realized I didn't have the network of the country club membership. I didn't have access to all the high net worth people in my neighborhood. There were other advisors there. And I realized I needed to get creative in terms of how I began to grow my practice. And what happened next was sort of accidental. I always had a passion for investing back in the lives of young people. And I graduated from a local high school here in town, Sam Houston High School here in Arlington, where I live today.
Oh,
And I always remembered that, when I was a senior, it would have been nice to have adults come back and tell me, why am I taking math? And why am I taking geography? And why am I taking history? How will these classes actually help me in the real world? But nobody
right.
showed up. And I thought to myself, that is just not right. And so I went back to Sam Houston, went to the principal and said, look, I want to recognize a teacher of the month and a student of the month. And back then they just said yes because they had no money. They wanted to do something to reward these people. So I came with
Right.
a $50 Amazon gift card in hand, a $25 gift card for the student, and basically was
Right.
able to just breathe words of life and affirmation to them. Well, what happened was shocking. And it really put my business on a trajectory that I just didn't plan on. they began to put the picture of myself and the student, the teacher, and the principal in a newspaper. These were these kind of papery things back in the day. We don't have those really anymore. But
Right.
and what happened is I began to get some phone calls. And I remember one lady specifically, she called, she said, Derrick, we want you to be our financial advisor. And Kristin, this had to be the most unprofessional thing I could have ever said. I said, ma'am, if you don't mind me asking, why out of all the advisors in Arlington, Texas, do you want to work with me? I'm brand new, just getting started. And
Hold on,
what
let me
she said,
unsell you. Let me
yeah,
just like tell you why that's a bad plan.
okay. Exactly. And so what happened was she began to tell me, she said, Derrick, we know you're new, we know you're young, but you believe in education like we do. And what she said next was, you care about what we care about. And that's why we want you as our financial advisor. Well, those words resonated with me. And I realized, wait a minute, these people could work with any advisor in town. They want to work with someone they know, like, and trust. But most importantly, they want to work with someone who cares about the same causes that they do. And what happened was, that's how I built my practice going forward, was being heavily involved in the community, little dollar amounts, not giving tens of thousands of dollars like many people think you have to do.
Right.
It's little things, but people felt like they were part of something bigger. So it was bigger than just money. It was actually combining meaning with your money is what grew my practice to the size it came to.
Wow, that's incredible. And I'm excited. We're going to dig into that today because I actually have a whole lot of questions around that.
Great.
And I'm sure the listeners will too. So, and I know as you're out, in the industry sharing and talking and sharing your story, you were able to sell the firm, exit. How long ago was that?
Yeah, that was in January of 2020. So just before COVID.
Perfect timing.
Timing
yes.
could not have been better, actually. And actually, for the group I sold it to, and we could talk more about that, it allowed them to really manage clients through a crisis. And so the timing was really good. They built trust with them quickly. And it allowed me not just to hand my clients off, but hand them up, which was real important in a big transaction like that.
Oh, that's great. Say more about hand them up. Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So one of the things I learned, I'll tell you a quick story. So we moved to Texas from New York when I was in the 6th grade. Okay. And there was a dentist that we found. His name was Dr. Hilton. And I went to Dr. Hilton for probably 25 years. And what happened over that time period was, it was more than just a dentist relationship. We would talk business and life. And I actually, people would laugh and say, Derrick, why do you love going to the dentist so much? Because I felt like I was making money going to the dentist, just talking ideas. Well, one day he's wrapping up, cleaning up my teeth and so forth. And he says, Derrick, he drops this bomb. He says, Derrick, this will be the last time I see you. And I said, why? He said, well, I'm selling my practice. And I thought, how terrible news this is, just to shock me like this. I had no news. Here's how I found out about it. And what it taught me was, one day when I would sell my practice years later, I didn't want anyone to feel like I just did. I felt like I got pushed to the curb and wasn't part of the discussion and didn't know anything about it. So what I did was, when I decided to sell, I actually called. I had about 300 clients, 100 I serviced, and then 200 in the rest of the practice, other advisors I brought in. I decided to call each one of them personally. And I got to tell you, it was one of the most emotional things I've ever done. Some people cheered me on. Derrick, we're so happy for you. Here, you're practicing what you've helped us do, which was great. Other people were severely disappointed and almost accusatory, like, Derrick, I can't believe you made a commitment to us and you're going to stay with us till retirement. Here you're bailing. But one lady I thought summarized it the best, Kristin. She said, Derrick, if you're going to have a midlife crisis, just go buy a Corvette. It's a whole lot cheaper.
That's so funny.
And what happened was, though, was each call I made, it was like pressing a button, replaying back all of my relationship with these people. And it was right. I started this first part of January, and about mid part of February, as I recall, I made the last phone call. And this is going to sound, I'm just going to be transparent here. I began to weep. The last call I made, it was such a big burden I was carrying. And that last
Mm-hmm.
phone call, all of it, all the waterworks just came out because I
Ugh,
wanted to make sure those clients, I mean, they had paid me well over the years to help them make a lot of money.
right.
I made a commitment to them. And that's why I say I didn't want to just find an advisor that was going to pay me the most money. I wanted to
Right.
find someone who would pay well, but who would treat my clients well. And what I had to realize too was a year from now, in all humility, I needed my clients to say to me, Derrick, we loved you, but we like this person better. You actually
Ah,
handed
yes.
us up. That was the goal. And so,
Yes.
and a year
I like
later,
that.
many people said that.
That's great. That's a really good story. And it's really you working in service of them, ultimately saying, okay, here, I know that I'm at a place where I'm not going to be the right person for you moving forward, given that you may have different ideas of where your life is going, as we all can, take different paths as we progress. And so, yeah, it sounds like you really helped them out in that way and found the right kind of partner
That
to
was the
trade
goal.
up to.
What I realized was that when I began to sell my business, I've always been passionate about marketing. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that all of us we're actually, all of us have a marketing business. We just
Yes.
happen to be marketing financial services. I would meet
Correct.
so many
Yes.
people over the years that they were far smarter than I was, better researchers. They could calculate the numbers. They could run the HP 12 far faster than
Oh,
me.
yes.
But I realized they didn't have the relationship and people just didn't like them. And they actually burned out quicker than I did. And I realized I
Right,
just need to
right,
stay in the game and make sure that I'm listening and making people feel understood. And when I realized that's really what led me then to be very careful about how I marketed myself, because I wanted to sell to an advisor that I would personally invest with. And I could say to my clients, eyeball to
right,
eyeball, hey, I believe in this group so much so I would invest my own money with them as well. So I wanted to make
right,
sure that I always put my money where my mouth was. That was real important.
right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And we talk a lot. We do talk a lot about marketing on this podcast, as that's a large part of my background
Yes.
as well. And it just always seemed to me that if you're starting a business or running your own business, I mean, I always started marketing first because that's where I came from. That was my history. I think as advisors who are especially kind of stepping more into that CEO role, where maybe they were like the hustling advisor building the business, but now they're stepping into that CEO role, or they're they have a team under them, and they're in that leadership position. They really do have to kind of elevate to think about if I do want to attract more maybe higher net worth prospects, if I want to grow my revenue, if I want to engage my clients and grow this business to make it a sustainable, viable proposition over the long term, they do have to embrace kind of that marketing relationship relationship marketing idea. So and I'm always telling people, advisors, they're like, when they don't want to do that, and I'm like, I understand it can be difficult, but once you kind of get comfortable, and I think you've talked a lot about this, I've seen stuff about this, about how can you get to a place where you're able to have a socially comfortable conversation about what you do.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us about that. I know that really intrigued me, because I'm like, that is definitely something I know advisors trip over, of being like, hopefully no one asks me exactly what I do, because if I don't know what to say and I'm going to say financial advisor, and then I know that's not the right answer.
Yeah, I
So,
write about this on LinkedIn quite a bit, and it's I'm passionate about it because it was my number one problem. I would
mm.
hope that in every conversation, if I could ask enough questions, they would never ask me what I did for a living. And
I'm
so,
with you. I was the same way. I was
yeah,
the
I mean,
same exact way. I was like, I'll just pepper them, and then maybe they won't ask me, and I won't have to sell them on something.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me take you into, let's say it's a Rotary meeting, or it's church,
Okay.
or it's your friend's birthday party, or your granddaughter or grandson's volleyball game, or whatever it may be. And
Yeah.
eventually the person says to you, so Kristin, what do you do for a living? And then you're faced with, what do you say? Well,
Right.
most advisors I find just say, well, I'm a financial advisor. Okay, so let me
Right.
press pause right there. Now, for
Yes.
most people, like I think of a financial advisor as the most noble profession in the world. I mean, literally, we help so many people more than attorneys and even doctors and CPAs, financial advisors, and they don't leave at five. They carry their clients with them, their worries, their fears in their head all the time. The
Right.
problem is that most people have a perception of what a financial advisor is. So when they hear
Right.
you say that, it's nothing against you, but what they're thinking is, oh, you sell life insurance. Oh, you
Yes.
sell mutual funds. Oh, you're a stockbroker. You know what? My friend lost money. I don't want to lose money with somebody.
Yeah.
You want to sell me something. And what happens is they close your box fast. And so that's it. You have been written off because in their mind, based on their experience, you are that what they think you are. And so it's
Right.
not fair, but it's reality. And so if you want to lose most clients, then say you're a financial advisor. Because when you do that, what happens is now here in Texas, we have what are called Krispy Kreme donut stores. And I
Oh, yes.
jokingly
Yum.
say that when you say I'm a financial advisor, people's eyes glaze over quicker than a Krispy Kreme donut. I mean, you can see they almost go into a comatose state. They're like, oh, how can I
Right.
get out of this discussion? So what I discovered is there's an antidote for that, and that is to present them with a relatable problem. So instead of saying
Right.
I'm a
Okay.
financial advisor, what I will guide people to say is, you know, Kristin, one of the biggest, and you'll notice when I say this, listen to how my voice inflection changes. I become like the doctor talking to the patient. I'm slowly talking. I'm expressing concern and empathy and worry that I hope, for goodness sakes, Kristin, that you don't have the same struggle. So hear my tone. You know, Kristin, so many people I talk to worry about running out of money in retirement. And I'm slightly nodding my head. And at this point, the person's going to say, yeah, I've got that same concern. I mean, it's because they connect to it so quickly. Well, at our
Right.
firm, we specialize in retirement income planning. We have a 3-step strategy that customizes a game plan for people so they don't run out of money. And what happens is it builds their confidence and they experience financial freedom. Now, pause. At any point in that, did I say I was a financial advisor?
No, not at all. That's what I was tuning in to saying, well, when are you going to say exactly what you do? But you do talk about the firm, and I heard 3-step process. So I'm like, okay, I can track with that. I see a framework.
So if we dissect what I just said, I talked about a relatable problem. And again, any advisor listening, what I suggest people do is think about your 5 favorite clients and your 5 most recent clients and ask yourself, what problem did they bring to you to solve? Because that's the ultimate focus group. It's telling you, here are your 5 favorite and your 5 most recent. So that may be a problem that you want to talk about that will connect with people. I just happen to like retirement. That was my specialty, and people resonated. So then the next thing you can do is say, you know, Kristin, let me tell you a quick story. We had a couple, and again, this would be based on a true story of something that you experienced in your practice. We had a couple come in the office recently. Now, again, notice my voice. And they were
I'm already
worried.
leaning in. I've been leaning in since you brought your voice down.
Okay.
I'm
yeah.
like,
So
I just want to, I'm like, I want to, I'm like feeling it. Like I want to be drawn in. I'm like, who's this couple and what is their story?
yeah, it's almost like I'm letting you in on a private conversation. And, you know, this couple came into my office and they were worried. They were scared about running out of money. And what happened is when we talked about the 3-step framework that we have and we began to talk about their goals and their dreams, believe it or not, they could actually retire sooner than they thought because they had done a financial plan. And suddenly they said, Derrick, we feel more confident than we ever have before. Well, what you've done now is you've talked about a relatable problem. You've talked about the process you follow. You've talked about the emotion that a client feels when they work with you. And then you've talked about this kind of a secret story about a real client and how they went through this. And at that point, somebody says, oh, so are you a financial advisor? And you say, well, yeah, what we do in our firm, we are financial advisors who specialize in, and the keyword there is specialize. Okay. We specialize in retirement income planning. And what happens then is you can then say, you know, hey, if you ever know anyone who needs the expertise that we have, please keep us in mind. Well, what
Right.
that does is that one little twist at the end, some people say, well, if you ever need us, well, then they get
Yes,
on
I
the
like that.
defensive
If
again.
you ever, yeah, if you ever know anyone, or if you come across anyone, or if you're, I love that, because it takes away that immediate like discomfort that you feel like, okay, I'm trying to sell them and they have to figure out why they're going to tell me no right now, even if they're genuinely considering it. But you're kind of like, consider the situation and where you are. It's like,
Yes.
yes,
I love that. And so the whole point of that is if an advisor right now listening is struggling with, well, I don't know if I could say that. The key is you just practice it. You write out and practice having that discussion. And then you begin to
right,
train your team to have the discussion. So when they're talking to a prospect on the phone, or your team is at Rotary or church or at their friend's birthday party, and they say, what do you do for a living? Our firm, you know, many people struggle. Then they say the same thing. So now it's not just
right,
you, but it's your network of your team that's all on the same page. But the goal is, think of yourself like the doctor. You're the
yes,
doctor who just happens to carry medicine with you all the time for the deepest, worst financial pain that prospect has. And if you don't share it with them in a way that connects with them emotionally and with the right words, they will go on and be financially ill, and they will not choose you. And that's not right.
right, right. I like that positioning. I think a lot of advisors can relate to that, and they see the parallel, but they maybe haven't quite connected those dots and how to use that in their own conversations. And I want to touch on really quickly something you just talked about, which is how you can train, how you do have to practice to make it work, which may feel like it's not authentic, but ultimately it will make you feel more comfortable when you're doing it. If you don't have to think through what are the words, what is the script, what is that, like, get comfortable saying it, then when you're out and about, it just comes out, and you'll probably adapt or change it based on the reactions of the person there. It's not like you're reading from a note card.
That's right.
But I do love the piece about training the team as well, because I think it really helps build that kind of business development mindset or marketing mindset throughout the organization, even if someone's job responsibility isn't specifically bring in new clients. It could be someone in operations who's out talking at a friend, at a barbecue, or hanging out with friends or family. And if they can comfortably articulate what the firm does and how they help people and what problems they solve, it feeds into this business development ecosystem, right? Like, people are hearing, they're getting consistent message out in the world. And it's not just about the leader of the firm, the CEO, or the partners who are like, we're the rainmakers, we're bringing all the business. Any one of those people in the firm could be interacting with a potential client. So I think that piece is really valuable.
Well, I love what you said. And, I think it's important for each advisor to remember that inside all of us, we're sort of wired for one radio station, and it's WIIFM. What's in it for me? And so when you can realize that every prospect you're talking to, you might think that your company name, because it probably has your name in it, is the most valuable thing to that prospect. They don't care. They care
Right.
that they're working with a reputable company that's not going to take their money and so forth. But ultimately, what they care about is the game you're in. It's like the billboard game. When you drive on the highway and you see a billboard, I often wonder, they probably spend $4,000 a month on these billboards. And if I can detect how this billboard helps me within a couple seconds, I'm moving on. So $4,000 flushed right down the toilet.
Right.
And so
Right.
you want to just keep in mind, it's sort of like everybody walks around with a bubble on top of their head, and it says, connect with my problem, please. And if you can see that, then you're just looking around and you can tailor the message. If you're in a group of younger people or a group of people who are deeper in retirement, whatever that may be, you want to custom tailor, but start off with the problem. And then you just go into doctor mode of like, Kristin, one of the biggest worries I find people have, and people start to lean in, because now you sound like you talk like the authority.
Yes. 100%.
And words are important, and how you say the words are even more important.
Right. All right. One, I'm going to step away and be practicing my pitch because I find it to be, even as I've grown and, taken on wearing different hats and done different things, it does take practice to get, lead with the problem and own that relatable problem and really be able to articulate it well. So that's really extremely helpful. I do want to make sure we spend some time on something that's really been, that I think really kind of separates you out from many people in our industry. And it's this idea around the radical generosity. I think you say you practice radical generosity, having a generosity, a purpose, connecting like you said in the beginning, connecting your cash to a cause.
Yes.
Tell us more about I will tell you, I will just confess that concept absolutely resonates with me. I completely understand it theoretically. How does someone go, this is my cause, and make it feel like it fits without it feeling fake or like, oh, I don't know, I just picked one and I'm going to do this thing? Like, how do we make it so it truly is transcending what your day-to-day reason is, if you're not sure, if you're unclear on what that bigger thing is?
Well, I'll tell you a quick story here. So there was a study done recently. There were two groups of people, and they were both asked to watch a car commercial. And one group was asked to watch the commercial, and they talked about the features and the benefits and the new interiors, and they registered how their brain responded to that commercial. Then the next group saw a commercial from the same car company, but this car company in this commercial talked about how the proceeds from each vehicle sold would help first-time Olympians have the money to train to reach a lifelong dream. And then they measured how their brain responded to that. And as you can imagine, the people who saw the advertisement about the car with the features and benefits didn't really have much of a change in their brain at all. This other one that saw the commercial about the Olympic athletes, the emotion their brain registered, get this, was similar as though they were looking into the eyes of someone they loved.
Wow.
I mean, that is so powerful. And so I began to think about that. And then when you think about a lot of these sort of psychological pyramids, you've got the basic needs that we all care about, food, water, clothing. But as we crawl all the way to the top of this pyramid, it's typically, they call it self-actualization, meaning. But ultimately, all of us want to know that our life made a difference in the lives of other people. And what I realized as I began to grow my practice, when that woman called me when I was 26 years old and said, Derrick, we want to work with you because you care about what we care about, it revealed this entire new way to think about things. And so what I would tell advisors is, ultimately, I mean, I started off with, I just want to make a lot of money. The more people I help them make a lot of money, and I make a lot of money. It's the ultimate rowing in the same direction. The problem is, you get to the top, you reach these awards of Forbes, and you've got a multi-million-dollar business, and you look around and you say, I thought I was supposed to feel differently. I thought I was supposed to have more meaning just by the accomplishments that I had, and I didn't feel that way. And what I began to look at was, the cause I cared about deeply was investing in the lives of young people and supporting local education. And I loved going to these high schools. And I did this, and I do this actually at a couple schools now because I still love doing it. And I love to tell the teacher, thank you for the impact you have, and tell the student, you have a bright future. We're so proud of you. And what happens is it endears people to you. People want to work with people who make them feel better. So for example, Kristin, if you do this in your local area, then high net worth clients, you think that, well, I need to go to the symphony. I need to give $100,000 to the shelter. No, we're just talking about $75 a month that you're doing at your local school, and then promoting it that, hey, by the way, as part of our business, we love supporting local education and helping make teens' lives better. People love that. So what we've been trained, though, is growing up, a lot of us have been told that if you give in private. We don't talk about our giving. It's sort of like the religion, sex, giving all goes in the same box, and we put a lock on it, and nobody's going to talk about it. But what we find is, if you give, which is great, but nobody knows it, it doesn't influence them to want to work with you. And so what I discovered, I call this the generosity purpose. That is, it gives you a choice of, you can pick a cause you care about, and you could say, I'm going to keep this cause to myself, and I'm going to use it personally to motivate me privately, and then share it with my team and say, we're going to grow the business so that we can help this cause. Okay. But the other option is you could pick a cause you care about and say, you know what? We're going to use this to motivate us to grow our business, but we're going to let our clients know that when they work with us, they are part of something bigger. And that option there can significantly grow your business. And so earlier, your question was, how do you pick a cause? What I would just say is, on a sheet of paper, write down, what is an injustice that you see in the world? What's a wrong that you want to right? What's a cause that you deeply care about, that even since you were young, it might have been a cause you were like, that is wrong that that's happening, but you never felt like you had the money to make a difference. And I would recommend you make it a local cause, because people really like that. So for my local cause, we would support, like I said, students and teachers and young people. So at our yearly Christmas event every year, I would invite the principals of those schools to say a few words to our entire client base. And they would say something like, I just want you to know that, by working with Derrick, you're helping make our students and our teachers' lives better. Thank you for that. And what I realized was, ultimately, money management is highly commoditized, but how people feel about who they work with, who manages their money, is non-commoditized. And so when you pick a cause you care about, that ultimately is what drives people. And as I speak around the country, that's the number one most requested topic, is how do we combine meaning with our money in a way that actually is approachable and realistic? And it's because I've lived it and it's easy to implement. Advisors love it.
Right. And I've heard, I know a lot of advisors, you talked about, they write the big check and go, hey, we'll sponsor the golf tournament that raises money for breast cancer or whatnot. And it's kind of a one-time thing, but you're saying to find something that you can also be involved with, right? Like show up somewhere and be part of, have it woven into your life, or the team members, and having them out in the community in some way, engaging in the cause. And it's not necessarily about the dollar amount. It's not saying we give 1% of all of our revenue to this cause. It's more local impact. Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a quick story. So there was a gentleman named Dave who was a longtime client of mine. And you know those relationships you have where you can just tell by the person's body language that something's wrong? Well, Dave comes into my office and I can tell his shoulders were slumped. He just looked older and he looked tired. I said, Dave, what's wrong? And he began to tell me that he wasn't motivated to go to his office anymore. He was a consultant, well-respected in the community, had a good team that he worked with, some family members there too. And for whatever reason, Kristin, I said to him, what is a cause that you care about, Dave? And he took a breath and he sat back in his chair and he began to tell me a story about years earlier. He had taken his family on an overseas trip, and the guide of this trip, of this particular tour he was on, began to talk about how poor that this area was. But the entire generation could change if there was a schoolhouse. Well, Bill remembered exchanging a glance with his wife as if to say, wouldn't it be cool to fund that school? And my conversation with him that day brought this all back. He'd forgotten about it. And I said, Dave, what if you did this? What if you set a goal of increasing your sales by 20%, and you took half of that increase and used it to fund that school? How would you feel about that? Well, his eyes got as big as saucers, and we began to brainstorm what that would look like. So I said, I tell you what, why don't you work on that? Come back in 3 months and we'll talk through it. So he schedules an appointment a month later. And I said, when I saw him, I said, Dave, you look younger, you look energized, you look invigorated. What happened? He said, well, I was a bit skeptical of what you said, but I decided, what the heck, I'm going to put it into practice. So he mocked up a school building and put a tab on his website that he called Generosity Purpose. And he put a picture of the school building there. And he emailed all of his clients and said, hey, just so you know, our generosity purpose this year is that by working with us, we're going to donate a percentage to help fund this school. Well, then his clients got excited. They referred other people because now they were part of something bigger. They could work with any consultant, but not every consultant. You were helping provide a school for people, but also his team got motivated. They were no longer just, putting paper clips on papers and stapling stuff, and it was a meaningless job. They were part of a purpose. But Dave himself was the biggest change person because now he felt like he had a reason to go make more money, and that was to do more good. And so I tell you that because once you pick out a cause, ultimately the money and padding your bank account, while it sounds good and feels good, it's a temporary high. We've all been there, and you'll be there as well, the people listening to this. But when there's a cause, when there's meaning to your money, then it makes it cool to go make a lot of money. A lot of people think, oh, if I make money, it's bad. People are going to think I'm bad if I talk about making money. I want you to go make a lot of money because of all the good that you can do with it. That's powerful.
That's extremely powerful, and I am 100% on board with that. I've always been a huge proponent of, making money. Like the whole point of like, it's exciting because think of what you can do, what you can do when you do make money. And in my head, it's not about, oh, I'll have a big house or I'll have 8 cars. I can't figure out why people have all these different things, but whatever suits you, that's fine. I have my own things I like, but you're ultimately like, because I want to be able to use it to help other people, to give it to people, to be able to be free of worry about myself because I know I'm okay. And so I can give this away, which I'm really excited. I think that really drives people in a way that you've articulated extremely well through the stories that you've told. So I really appreciate that.
It's interesting. Thank you for that, by the way. So when you think about if you are an average financial advisor, but you're generous, that's okay. I mean, you're generous and average advisor. Or if you are a specialist, you're really good at what you do, and you're not generous, well, that's okay too, but you're not on all cylinders. So ideally, we want to pair these two together and say, just the dialogue we talked about earlier, is if you can own a problem, then you will own your success. If you own that problem and you talk about it in every conversation in that low and slow, I call it jokingly, it's like cooking a brisket here in Texas. It's low and slow. You just want a little bit lower, a little bit lower voice, a little bit deliberate, talk a little bit slower because you care. You're communicating empathy. Like, I don't want this problem to hold you back financially. That's what you're telling them essentially. And when you do that and they say, like, my gosh, this person is a specialist, and they recognize how generous you are, that is an unstoppable force. It's like a moat around your business success that we just find it helps advisors prosper those two things. It's like back in my day, we had this cartoon called the Wonder Twins. And you had two people that would come together and it would form this superpower. And that's what it is. When, words equal wealth, and then meaning and money together, those combined make you an unstoppable advisor and highly attractive to high net worth prospects who deep inside, they have the money, but they're low on the meaning. They want to work with professionals who give them a doorway to say, when I work with Kristin, when I work with other advisors, there is this polish, there's this cachet they feel, kind of a status that, oh, you don't work with Kristin? Well, you should work with her because of all the great work she does in the community. So that's what I want to be said about every advisor listening.
Yeah, it opens that dialogue so easily for a client to naturally refer you because they feel connected. And I love the trickle down on that. That's incredible. You're kind of the number of people that you affect, and I can see the whole loop coming together. Yes. Like, you help find a cause, you're serving and helping those people, you're making your clients feel good, they're talking to you about this to their community, the community comes to you, you're able to give more back to the cause. It just makes a lot of sense. So
you got it right
there.
Wow,
thanks. I'm like, I'm excited because we covered the few things that I wanted to at least use my time that I have with you today to find out more about. One thing I do like to ask all of the guests, Derrick, is what fulfills you? How do you find that fulfillment?
Well, two things. I mean, I love when I am speaking in front of advisors. And I like to say I'm not there to change their lives. I'm not there to change their business. I just want to give them a quarter twist. I want to give them a little something that will have a big impact in their practice. The worst thing you want to hear is a speaker that says, let's change everything. And then you leave more frustrated than you were when you got there.
Right.
So
You're like,
when
now what am I
people,
supposed to do?
yeah. So when advisors say to me, typically, high producing top advisors say, Derrick, that was so practical. I can apply that. That's meaningful to me. But second of all,
Right.
I love, and I do this about every 2 weeks. I go to a local high school, and what I do is I just write them a check. I wrote a check to the local, actually, this was an elementary school for $500. We're going to do 10 $50 Target gift cards. They're going to give to their staff member or teacher of the month. And that's meaningful. Like they'll tag me, they'll thank me on social media. And sometimes I'll get to go and present it to the teacher. But when I get to tell them, I mean, you're making an impact. And I tell the teacher, possibly a Christmas or a Thanksgiving, there's going to be your name brought up as you were a person who impacted that kid. And now they're 30 years old, but they're thinking about you. And so to remind them of that is powerful.
That's great. That's great. And from our conversation before we hit record, I understand you're a baseball fan and go yearly to the World Series. So that must be pretty fulfilling too.
It is. I've taken my kids there several years. We actually offline, we saw Madison Bumgarner, who pitched the no-hitter for the Giants and won the World Series that game. That was powerful there in San Fran. That was so cool.
Oh my goodness.
But I take my daughter with me to the World Series every year. We love it. It just, even if the game wasn't there, just time with her. And then the World Series is kind of a bonus.
Yeah, I think that's a great structure to be like, well, this is a thing we do, and this is what we do together every year. So I just love it. Derrick, if advisors listening are like, wow, this is incredible. I want to learn how to do that. I want to learn more about this. Where can we send them?
Yeah, 2 places. You can go to successforadvisors.com. That's my website. And on there is a link to a downloadable called The 10 Fatal Mistakes Financial Advisors Make. You can get there through the website or also follow me on LinkedIn at Derrick Kinney. I produce content 6 days a week, and the goal is to help you grow your business. If I haven't done that, then I'm failing you, and you should unfollow me immediately.
And I'll just give a little plug there to say I did sign up for your 10 fatal mistakes, and the copywriting is outstanding. The mistakes are all, you're all going to want to read those, but you'll also enjoy the emails that come along with it. So,
Great.
How you get some and you're like, this one, you'll be excited from email number 1. So I don't want to spoil it for everyone, but that first subject line is quite good. So
thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so it
this
sounds
is
like,
no, I'm sorry.
It sounds like we could keep going and we're being forced off by you, I think.
No, that's not exactly true, but it's almost true.
Yes.
No, this was a very interesting conversation, and thank you, Kristin, for having it. Derrick, can I go back and ask you just one really quick question? Because I think that a lot of people who might be listening to this think, oh, I just pick a cause. And I think if they just pick a cause, they risk being inauthentic. If I listened and got what you were saying, is it's important that you pick a cause you feel a connection to. And that's what keeps it from being an inauthentic, fakey kind of thing. Because you personally, as a financial advisor, do really care about that particular cause. Did I get that right?
That's exactly right. One time people ask me, should I just ask my clients? And I said, well, you could get their feedback on it, but ultimately, I want this to be your cause because ultimately people buy into your passion. People purchase passion. And when they sense that you're passionate about young people, and one thing we know as parents, they will spend money to help their kids academically and athletically. I mean, they will take on second jobs, they'll get pizza routes, they'll do whatever it takes to give their kid the edge. So when you do things that help kids, help teens, help invest in the lives of young people, you are gold. As long as that is truly your passion, if it is, people will sense it. And if it's inauthentic, they will sense that as well.
Yeah.
Very good.
Great clarification, Bill. That's what I was
thanks,
wondering
Bill.
about as well. So thanks, Derrick.
No, 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 and it's great. Kristen, I love it when we're reminded that people,
Yes,
relationships are the
I know.
most important
Humans,
thing in all of this. That's what it comes down
right?
to, and I mean that is a theme a lot of your conversations as well with financial advisors. So that's
I
great.
was going to say, I think it's a through line we've had. We always are like, remember,
Yes,
there's a human. Remember, we're talking to humans.
Yes.
Comes back to that all the
people
time.
are involved, actual
Yeah.
real life people with real life lives, and that's what you're dealing with. You're not.
Yes.
The money is almost incidental, as a matter of fact,
Correct.
and you're right, Kristen. That is a through line through all of this stuff. Which brings me to the question: we know how to get a hold of Derrick now. How do we get a hold of you if there are people listening who want to have further conversations with you, or maybe engage with you about some of the things that you're doing?
Well, if you're on LinkedIn to connect with Derrick and follow him, then you can also look me up too. Kristin Harad. I am on there also daily, sharing content 5 or 6 days a week as well. I love having conversations there. And you can also reach out at fulladvisorcoaching.com, hit the request a call button, or sign up on the resources page to get on our email list, and we'll send you out some good free resources. It's either of those places are the best places to go to find me.
Yeah, and while we're talking about it, I just want to remind people who maybe are listening to this conversation and this podcast for the first time who are not subscribers, do two things. One, hit the subscribe button and become a subscriber. That way, when when Kristen drops a new episode, you'll be notified that she has a new episode out for you to listen to. But it'll also remind you to go back and listen to episodes 14 and 15, where
Nice.
Kristen and I talk about LinkedIn. And Kristen really does lay out a number of really, really important things and important insights into how to use that particular piece of social media. And it's great. Kristen, I've noticed from engaging with you on LinkedIn how many people are responding, and it's been really amazing to see folks engage with you on that topic. So that's terrific. So do that as well as hit the button and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Bill Tucker. I would thank you for taking the time to listen today. We appreciate it. And on behalf of Kristen and everybody at Full Advisor Coaching, I want to remind you of this one thing. You can go out today and make today a great day or not. It's your choice. Use it wisely. Thank you. Until next time.